Right, game's broke. I can't play it anymore. Can't even go back to do the whatever, so who cares? Right, I'm gonna be honest. I've given it a second chance, and this game is god awful. Everything about the game is god awful. Everything about how it looks is god awful. Everything about the way it plays is god awful. The dialogue is mostly redundant. Characters just swear and talk shit and whine and complain. There's actually no substance or nuance to anything that any character in this entire thing says. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what world I'm in. I don't even care. I don't know why grass is coming out the floor. Why is grass coming out the floor indoors? That shouldn't be a thing in game design unless you're going for some overgrown look. And even then it needs to look better than this, because this looks like a massive mistake. There's an endless, and I mean endless, line of glitches and pathfinding problems and getting stuck in walls and even the floor. And quite frankly, this is not a product that demands money. That's not my opinion, that's just abject fact. This is not a product which I am happy that I paid money for. I don't want a refund or anything. And I don't want any drastic action. What I would like, though, is for another year in development. Another year in making things look a lot better than they do. For a start, this area does not need to be as big as it is. I got lost because it's so full of irrelevant shit that I just ended up wandering off and trying to find my way around. I don't understand the point in it. Is it a workout area? Is it like an obstacle course? Couldn't even tell you. It's a mess. And that's how I'd sum up everything in this game. It's a mess. The dialogue's messy because it doesn't make any sense. The characters just all look the same and all have horrible models. The universe around me is just nonsense. The Shivering Isles makes more sense than this. There's just giant red things. There are things that are barely textured. And you know, I actually think this would be a much better game if it weren't for the fact that you have so much crap in it that I'm pretty sure most of this is you just trying to, like, compromise for the fact that you have so much crap kicking about the map. When in reality, you don't need this much. Make it more linear and it would be more enjoyable, and it could look better as well. You could create a more intimate environment. But instead, you've made it really sprawling and big, but there's no content in the game, and there's nothing of value in the map other than what you're actually after. The water and food thing I would get rid of because it seems pointless. I know other games do it, and it sucks. I've never enjoyed it in any game, even in survival games, because it feels like you're babysitting a moron who's too stupid to feed himself or drink. And it annoys me. It stops the game's flow, it does your head in, and there's actually no time in my entire life where I think, you know what, it got really cool and intense when I hadn't had a drink for 20 minutes and almost died of thirst. Optimization needs to be fixed, because every time you die or sign out, you end up getting stuck. That needs fixing. Character models need fixing because they all look horrible. I wouldn't mind if they were more generic but more pleasing to the eye, because quite frankly a lot of these in-house assets just look bizarre. They're all cross-eyed, cock-eyed weirdos and combined masks that don't seem to match anything else in their outfit. I don't know who that girl is following me around, but she's annoying. I don't know if she has like any purpose in the rest of the game, but quite frankly I just find it irritating that she won't go away and leave me alone. Aspects of the game are just kind of annoying, like props are too big. Why are fire extinguishers and sinks bigger than me? That should never be the case. There are several environments that are built up where you can't get to certain areas, and you can't even tell if that's intentional. There are certain areas which look like you can climb on them and walk around them, but then it's really hard to do that, and it makes you question, can I even do this? Or is this just an accident? Am I accidentally exploring the map? Or is this map, like, meant to be explored? I don't know, and when I'm asking that question, you know you're kind of fucked. I don't know what this area is either. I don't know what any of the game is. I don't know what the setting is. I don't know what the characters are, and I should know that by now. Like, again, comparison, I was playing Cyberpunk. I'm not saying this game needs to look like and be like Cyberpunk, because I understand that was a very expensive game. But, when I played that, I get it. I'm in a city, it's in the future, bit bleak, there's a lot of crime, cybernetics are really fashionable, and I'm either a desert Mad Max snowmad, a midnight club racer, or a corporation slut. And I get it. I know everything about Cyberpunk that I need to know the minute I boot the game up. I've been playing this game for nearly an hour, and I still don't know what the shit I'm even looking at right now. I don't know if these are real houses or empty training houses. I don't know if this is an abandoned neighborhood. I don't know if this is an inhabited neighborhood and you just forgot to make it look remotely inhabited. I couldn't tell you. I know you've had inspirations. I know you've had mechanics, but honestly, this game is crippled by your ambition. I think you tried. I know you took inspiration from The Last of Us and stuff. The Last of Us is too complicated to be your first game, right? Make a decent FPS, not even an RPG FPS. Make an FPS that's functional and works, like Hellhunt, right? If you could do that, which I can't imagine is that hard compared to this, if you could make a game like that, you could make something good. I think you could make something brilliant because that's the thing. There are aspects of this game that are really good. Like, the way the character moves around and stuff is quite, it's not new, but it's quite impressive. I haven't actually played a character who has this much versatility. Admittedly, it's got some problems. The actual programming of the character and the way he moves and the way he acts and the way he looks is a bit weird, and the fact that I can see my whole body like I'm having some weird out-of-body experience in first person kind of does trip me out a little. And I understand that it's never going to be 100% perfect on this kind of budget, but this kind of movement isn't too bad. This kind of gameplay isn't too bad. But if you want to make a good game, my advice would be do simpler. Your first game was a battle royale. Those are kind of complicated. This is a huge AAA epic RPG, and it's kind of complicated. And I think you have bit off way more than you can chew with this one. I'd get a development team, a studio to make this kind of thing, and actually have a publisher backing me before I'd even attempt anything like this. And by a publisher, I mean you'd need a pretty damn good one to make a game this deep and intense. So yeah, my parting advice, because I'm not coming back to this unless you do like a major Final Fantasy 14-esque overhaul and save it, Wastelanders kind of update, which will make it a different kind of game, and I'll give it a second chance. But I'm not playing this any further. It's annoying me too much, and it keeps breaking on me. This game is unplayable. I'm sorry. I know you worked on it for well over a year, but this game is unplayable. I'm being charitable by saying it like that. It is just unplayable. But I'm not coming back to it, but my advice would be learn from it, and instead of making it, maybe use the assets, like some of the better assets, and make it into like a real FPS game with levels, and use some of those mechanics to make a decent FPS game, or a decent game about something else, maybe a jungle environment game, I don't know, just something simpler than this, something which you can't mess up. An old school FPS like Doom would be right up your alley, because I think you're a competent game developer, but you don't have the experience to make something like this, and I can tell. I've been harsh and said this is how a game like this would look if I made it. and that's because I just don't have the experience. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's no shame in going simpler. There's no shame in making another FPS, especially whilst you're relatively new to the industry. And then maybe if you make the game good enough, you can one day make this the way you really wanted it to be. Because I know that this was not what you had in mind. I can tell you've made compromises along the way. Things didn't work out the way you wanted them to, and you were like, well, it's good enough, or I think people will understand, or at least, you justified it. You had to justify all of this to get to this point. One thing after another, you basically couldn't get perfect and said, I'll move on to the next thing because that's the best it could be. And by the end, none of it is as good as you want it to be. I understand that because that's how most creative things end up going for me. It's why I gave up years ago on being a game developer, or anything like that, because I just can't hack it. You, on the other hand, I think you could potentially hack it, but I think, and I'm going to say it just one more time because I'm sure I'm repeating myself and annoying everybody, I think you should go simpler. I mean that, like, a lot simpler. Just a simple first-person shooter would suffice. I mean, you can innovate, you can have some cool mechanics for your enemies, but you don't really need anything more than that right now. I think that is about as far as your developmental abilities can take you. I think you would need a team and some good stuff to be working on to make a game of this caliber. So yeah, I'm trying to end on a positive note on a game that's frustrated me and broken on me twice. And quite frankly, yeah, I've just tried every button at this point and none of them work. Yeah, so this game is a bit naff. I find it awful. I wouldn't recommend it, truth be told. And I do wish the developer some luck in the future. He takes criticism quite well, minus one or two situations. But in truth, yeah, he has taken criticism really well so far, and I hope he continues to do so, because that makes you unique in the industry, believe it or not, because there's just not enough devs that do that, and I'm actually quite proud of that. So, you know, that there are people who still do. So I hope that I never have to play this again, and if I do play it again, it'll be a different experience, ideally. Until then, I'll keep an eye on future projects from this developer. Maybe he'll make something either like I said, or maybe he'll make something that's a bit more palatable. Who knows? Until then, toodles.